Hi ladies, Natasha here. I'm so excited that you were able to make it to a Graze dinner. Our last Gather event, Tara talked about living life slowly. The big topic was slow. So I've asked a dear friend of mine, Meg, to sit and chat with me about life seasons, and I really hope you guys enjoy the conversation. I really just wanted to get together, and I love talking with you. I love when we get together and we chat, and I really just wanted to chat about this idea of slowness. I mean, Tara talked about it, and she did a great job at our Gather event, but I really just wanted to get together with someone and talk about like what it actually looks like to live slowly and what that means for everybody. But I feel like, like we constantly have all these things on our to-do list and stuff, and I don't know. I just want to talk about being slow. How do you feel about the word slow?
I think being slow and creating space is a super buzzy word or topic right now, especially in our Christian community. And sometimes I get kind of fiery about it, and I don't know why. Like, for a long time, I was like, this is popular, though. Like, slow is good for us.
Yeah.
Like, I should love, like, clearing out my schedule, and it never really felt right. And so I've spent a lot of time, and I'm still wrestling with the idea of what does that look for me. But I think my biggest takeaway from, especially since you asked me to kind of meditate on this topic and that we were going to talk about it, I've been thinking that I think our culture makes slowing down a lot about us.
Yeah.
We take our gaze off of God. We focus on ourselves and what our circumstances are, what our schedule looks like, our discomfort, our exhaustion. And we can't see outside ourselves, and we become so preoccupied with fixing that. And I've been in that situation so often. I'm just trying to muscle it out on my own.
Yeah, so I love that you said that, one, God is sustaining, because he is, and I feel like a lot of times you forget that. And then I love how you also said, like, you look at other things to, like, look for what you should be doing. And I feel like when it comes to slowing down, or is busyness okay, or why it's not okay, and, like, maybe we're shaming other women from being too busy when it's, in reality, it's not a bad thing. We're making it seem like a bad thing, but we're looking at outside sources for this validation or guidance when really we should be looking at God. And I feel like that's where, like, things get a little confusing.
Yeah, and I think it's all about your motive.
Yeah.
So if you do feel uncomfortable and like your schedule is too full, like there are seasons where you should clear out your schedule and look at your motive and where you are getting your worth. Do you feel more valued and important because your schedule is fuller, or because you do have a job, or because you are in extracurriculars, or, well, where do you get your value?
Right. Yeah.
Or, there's also been times in my life where I have cut out a lot of things, and then I have been fearful, and I've haven't moved forward in what God's wanted me to do either. And so I've worshipped the idea of, no, I don't need, like, I'm going to be minimalist and have clear my schedule because I'm going to only do what I think God wants me to do.
Sure.
But that's been an excuse to not move too. So I think it's all motive. And
we have this, like, big, like, FOMO. And I know that you love using that word, which I love that you use it. I love that you're so, I don't know, relevant right now.
FOMO.
YOLO, FOMO, look at me. Fear of missing out and what's going on, and slowing down seems to be this trend, right? Or being busy seems to be this trend that women want to hop on, or like you read bloggers doing, and like all these books and stuff. So we want to do what everybody's doing, but we're not looking at what God's calling us to do. And sometimes you're being called to a busy season, right? Or sometimes you're being called to a slow season. It's like, how do you determine the difference? How do you know that you're okay to know what season you're in and being okay? I mean, I know I've been in busy seasons, and it's frustrating and it's exhausting. Just because you're in a busy season and God's called you to that season doesn't mean it's going to be easy, So it's like, how do you know, I don't know, how do you know what season you're being called to, whether it's slow or a busy season, and being okay with it, like being okay with the season that you're in?
That's a good question. So interesting, because I think we put values on slow or busy. And so I think first off, we just need to be really careful about what types of values we put on either. Like one isn't better or worse, or one isn't lazy and whatever. So, but I think it all starts with like being connected with God, having a relationship with God, being aware, and I like to use the cheesy word awake. I don't know why, but that always helps me.
Nicole could just say woke.
Woke, there you go.
Woke.
But my word of the year for like 3 years now has been awake, and I'm not ready to change it because I still feel like I'm still learning. Like I want to be connected to God first, and I feel like if I am connected to Him, I'm gonna know. Like, and that's uncomfortable. But He gives us the discernment when we ask, and we have to be willing then to follow through on what He's saying. And it is not going to be fun sometimes, and it's not going to be comfortable, but we can be honest with God about that, and He helps us through that. And so I know that seems like such a trite answer, but I think that how do you know when you're called to a busy or a slow season? Sometimes you just find yourself in those seasons. Yep. I often try to just take my gaze off of myself too and focus on God. And I think that, let's not try to categorize all our seasons all that much, and let's try to just do what He asks us to do and just keep doing the next right thing. And if that's like, ooh, this thing is, my schedule is too full, I'm not able to honor my family well, and I'm not healthy, just take the next right step.
Sure.
Or
I love that you said that sometimes you find yourselves in those seasons. And I think a lot of, slowing down can be a very positive thing, or like living your life in a slow, God honoring with God at the center. It can be something so powerful and great. And I love that you said that, because sometimes you do find yourself in these seasons and you have to be present in them. And it's so hard to be present when your mind is constantly rolling to the next best thing. So if anybody knows anything about the Enneagram, I know you know a lot about the Enneagram, sans that we talk about it all the time in the office, but I'm a 7, so I'm constantly looking for the next best thing. And it's really hard for me to just be present in my season, in the moment, without focusing on like what I'm doing tomorrow, or what's for lunch, or what am I doing this weekend. So how do you be present? How can you be present? Because that is totally part of slowing down. Yeah. How do you find yourself being able to be present?
I'm not very great at it. Yeah. So I'm a 6. I'm bad at it. So I always have like a plan B, C, D, and E for any catastrophe that could happen. So I'm more like the opposite of like next thing. I'm always like paralyzed. I don't want to move. Slowing down looks different for everybody.
Well, absolutely.
And so I think that goes all the way back to not looking left and right and trying to prescribe a way to slow down, but instead asking God, what do you have for me in this season? And I feel exhausted or I feel too overwhelmed. Like, show me how I can slow down, or what do you have for me today? Like, and he'll give that wisdom. He promises that he will. He promises that he'll sustain. So I think that trusting that, and then the hard thing though is the trust and the standing in the realm of not trying to fix it on your own then.
So a lot of the times when we try and slow down, we'll kind of clear our schedule or things, but that comes with, Tara talked about saying no to things. Yeah. It is so hard for me to say no to things. Yeah. I want to be like everywhere in one place. I want to help out with anything. Like I'm a people pleaser. Like, what do you need? I'm there. I'll help you. Yeah. So it's really hard for me to say no, but in saying no, I, 1, allow myself to be present in whatever situation I'm in. And 2, I think it was Tara that said, you allow somebody else to say yes to what God is calling them to do, which I think is so powerful. I was like, yes, that's so great. Like, we shouldn't feel guilty about saying no. And I so struggle with that. So how do you know what to say no to? Like, how do you know to just be like, no, I really can't do that, and be okay with it and not feel guilty?
Yeah. Well, that looks different and depending upon what season of life I'm in. Yeah. I think that the one thing that's really helped me is whenever in my head, I think, okay, I'm going to say yes to this commitment. That means I'm saying no to something else. Right. Because I only have as many hours in the day. So, yes, I'm going to say yes to running at 6 a.m., but that means I'm saying no if my 4-year-old from his bed says, "Mommy, cuddle," which he does every morning.
Yeah.
So if I want to run, I need to leave a half hour earlier if I'm going to give up, which there's no shame in whatever you choose, because there are days where I'm like, I can't handle anymore. Like,
but running's like is very therapeutic for you. You enjoy it. It's where you get your thinking in, and you do have to sacrifice something to do that.
But the sacrifice. So that's been the most helpful thing for me with thinking through, what do I say yes or no to? Well, if I say no to this, I'm saying yes to something else. Another thing that's helped me is knowing. You have to know what your priorities are. Yeah. You really do have to sit down, and they change and they shift. But sit down and think, who gets your time? And sometimes I think of it like the layers of an onion, or this core that kind of radiates out, because I have a really hard time too. I want to be fun and have fun and do all the things, but so there's people that, even if it's inconvenient, and I struggle sometimes with this, I'm not always great at it, but I will say yes all the time because they're at my core or that first layer, and I've decided that I want to build community with them, or they're my family, and I want to be the type of person that cares about them, and I think that we're called to that. But there's also people or opportunities that are further out, and so like there might be seasons where I have less going on, and I can try new things. But so that sometimes helps.
I love how you're bringing back the core analogy, because you're reminding me of Amy when we had our Gather Soul, and she talked about the core and how your soul is in the center, and then you have the outer layer, and then another one, and I can't remember to save my life like what the layers were, but it's like your friends, your family, like your relationship with God, and how all these things, it's how you take care of your soul and how you're doing that. So I love that you just did that. Well, I hope you ladies enjoyed that conversation. I just wanted to bring it back, reel it in a little bit. I was reading through my Bible, and in Ecclesiastes, King Solomon actually asked God for wisdom and discernment to lead his people, and God grants him that. But Solomon finds out that, I'm still not satisfied with these things. And I think like Meg and I were talking, we constantly seek other things to satisfy us as opposed to what God wants in our life. So I really just want that to be the focus of your conversation. And I'm going to read a verse for you, and you guys can meditate and chat about it. Ecclesiastes 3:1, it says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing." So what if resting and being still was actually to satisfy God as opposed to our own needs? Feel free to use the questions that we have for you or the questions that we used in the video. But my prayer and hope for you ladies is that you guys would just have a genuine conversation with each other. Enjoy the rest of your evening.